What you see behind me is the result of most of a day's work yesterday, where our neighbor Dermot was very kind to bring over his 13-ton excavator and 10-ton dumper, and he helped us to just scrape all of the soil layer back for a large area that we're going to use as our new garden patch, a new vegetable garden for this year. And the size of that is approximately 23 meters long by 18 meters wide, inside of which we're going to have a 1.5 meter at least walking walking row around the garden of wood chip. And then within the actual garden area, we're going to have 13 75-centimeter wide rows that go 20 meters long. And we're going to plant just a whole bunch of stuff in there that we already have propagating in the polytunnel, which you've probably seen from a previous video. So now what we're doing is bringing up all of our old horse shit, compost sort of, and this is going to be our base layer. And you'll see I've dropped skip bags full of wood chip around the edges. I'm going to need more than that, but this is just a start and give me a psychological border to start putting some logs in around the actual garden space, so I can then make the walking rows, build up the garden rows. And we've got a couple of articulated truckloads of one of compost and one of topsoil coming during the week. Then finish the whole thing off, and I'll fence it, and I'll put windbreak fabric and welded wire around it to stop all of the critters coming in and eating our plants. And so we'll show you all of this as the week goes on, and hopefully after a series of videos you'll see a awesome new vegetable garden for 2021. So just to show you guys where that compost that we brought up to the new vegetable garden area came from, this is where it came from. This was several years of horse shit all piled up by the previous owners of this farm. In its last life, it was a horse breeding operation, and when they're mucking out their stables, they just piled up this horse manure here, and it built up to about here ish, and it was all the way back and all the way out to the front. As you can see, we've got some detritus here on the bottom, and again, our friend Dermot, he came in here with his big excavator and he pulled all this out, and we carted it up to the vegetable area with that 10-ton dumper. Now I just have a small amount at the very back here, just to load up with my tractor and bring that rest of that up there, so that we can finally power wash this out and get working on regenerating this building area like we have done with the barn, as you've seen in previous videos. Some of the wood borders I was talking about, where we're going to frame out the vegetable garden area, I'm going to reuse a lot of the old fence posts that we took up from the rest of the farm several months ago with the help of another farmer friend, Edmund. So we have a pile here of some of the kind of lower quality ones, and I'm going to use the largest diameter ones to start building that border, and then wherever I run out of those, I'm going to get some logs from underneath the trees, which you'll see in just a moment. But also I have some more inside the barn here, and I did some shuffling around so I can access those. You want to come in and have a look? So inside this old stable, We've got all of those fence posts you can probably see piled up around here. And I'm going to get rid of this pile of wood. I already moved our firewood over to the side there so I can get at it with the tractor. And I'm going to grab, again, the largest diameter old fence posts that were used as gate stringers. And I'm going to use those as the rest of the border for the vegetable garden. Some of these are rotten, but we're going to choose the best ones to make the fencing around, eventually around that garden, so that the dogs and critters can't get in there to dig up our vegetables. Some of the larger logs that we're going to use to make that border. This is the first one. I've had this pulled out from our pile for quite a while. You can see that I've got some sawdust here. I've been chunking it up and using it for making benches and different things like that. But I'm going to drag this up to the vegetable garden with the tractor and start my border with it. And then also we have further down here a whole pile of more of these logs and trees that I'm going to use to finish that border. I'm going to try to use as many of those old fence posts as I possibly can, but the rest is going to be these larger logs that I'm going to pull out of here again with the tractor. I'm going to select some that are approximately the same diameter as those larger fence post stringers, and that's what we're going to use. You can see our cat monkey is patrolling up along here, looking for mice. Good girl. Gonna ruin your pile here in a little bit, monkey. Was a journey. So I have all these large fencing gate stringers, so the big posts that hold the gates on usually for a wood and wire fencing system, and they were kind of not doing too well on the farm, so I removed pretty much all of the wooden fence posts on the farm and just piled them up for later use. And so now I'm going to reuse a bunch of these big ones to go in our new vegetable garden as bordering, so I know where to lay my wood chip and where I need to be making my rows. But first I had to remove just a whole ton of fencing staples. So here are just some of the staples that thankfully are now not going to end up in my garden, and that's about half a quarter of the staples that I had to remove one by one with a hammer and my trusty punch, which I made from mild steel, and just drew down into a taper, ground a point on it, and I super quenched it. And if you don't know what super quench is, you could look it up or check out the Northwest Blacksmith Association. You might be able to find a recipe for it from one of those guys. But yeah, super quench is a way that you can just kind of bring a lot of the carbon to the surface, carburize mild steel, and harden it. So thankfully this mild steel punch has stayed together over all of these big posts and all of those staples coming out, and hammered on it all the way to the side and back and forth, and it's still straight, although you will see that the top of it is really mushroomed out and is cracking at the edges. That was just pretty clean and flat this morning when I started, so that's it's a lot of mushrooming, but it's meant to be soft at the top and hard towards the bottom here, so that's the way it's meant to work. And I can easily just cut that off and grind it back into just a chamfer on the top, and I'll be good to go again with this for another while. But yeah, awesome. That took about 3 or 4 hours of just sitting there hammering away. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off the pointy bits of the posts with my chainsaw, and then I'm going to take the tractor and load them all into the garden area so I can arrange them. I'll measure out with ropes and stakes, and then I can get shoveling compost. All right. Really pays to have a sharp chainsaw. It's pretty important. If it's blunt, you'll just be sawing at that thing, you'll be putting stress on it, and you might harm your chainsaw, and you might get a bounce back, and you might harm yourself. So having a sharp chainsaw is important. Thankfully mine was nice and steely sharp today, but it's good practice. Usually what I do after every kind of middle to major use of a chainsaw, I'll go ahead and sharpen that chain that evening, just to make sure that it's all sharpened and oiled and fueled and ready to go for the next time I need to use it. So, alright, so now we need to dump these logs over in the garden area. I've got a few over there already, but I just want to bring these ones over. Okay, break time. I'll bring this down and then break time.